morning, everybody. There's a term that's used in sports which has applications in other fields as well. And it has to do with the very best coaches. Not only are they successful where they are, but they begin to develop what's called a coaching tree. Namely, a bunch of guys who learn from them and go on to be coaches themselves. That is Tom Burns as pastor. Not only did any number of his assistants, like myself, go on to pastorship right after being with him, but there were a number of priests who had long, distinguished careers, who came from other ministries and places in the priesthood, who came here to learn how to be a pastor. But it's not what he taught that made him such a success. It's who he was and who he always will be. Not only for the priests that he interacted with, but with each and every person, I dare say, in this church. I came here almost 25 years ago, and I remember my interview. I was 11:30 on a Saturday, and you'll know why I know that in a moment. As I arrived, the first question that he asked me was, "How many hot dogs do you want, one or two?" Well, we went into the kitchen, where there was a teenager who was working as receptionist, and he was preparing the lunch. And so we went in, and then there were a few other people that started drifting in. And before you know it, there was about 8 people having lunch together. And we talked about the Giants. We talked about his favorite condiments for hot dogs. All kinds of wonderful things. At 12:30, I saw him getting ready to leave the table, and I thought, oh, finally we're going to have the interview. So I said to him, where are we going to meet? He says, oh, I have private baptism now. I said, well, what about the interview? He said, well, you sent it. He said, I checked you out before you came. He said, I wanted to know whether you could eat a hot dog and why you're interested. And see, that's the way it was with everyone. He cared about people. You heard that in the reflection by Jerry. That was the essence of the man. There are a million stories that illustrate his many, many idiosyncrasies. He was a larger-than-life character. And although I was only here 4 years, I think I learned more in those 4 years than I did in the other 33 years of my priesthood. There were many things he did which were quite universal, although I don't think he saw it that way. You could be a teenager at times talking about bodily functions and things like that. He always, one of his big things, I remember one night, it was the Easter Vigil, and it was starting really late. And we couldn't get him, of course the church was supposed to be in darkness and people were coming in, and he had one little light on, he was under that light and talking to people as they were coming in. And so finally we got him inside to get him dressed. And he said to me, I have to go to bed. And this is, of course, after we put layers and layers of robes on him. And I looked at my watch, and I looked at the people there, and I said to him, and this was, I think, probably the meanest I ever was to him, I said, you don't have to go, it's in your head. And he listened to me. And he stayed and did Mass, and at the end of Mass, like a jerk, I said to him, look at that, it's 2 hours later, and you didn't need to go to bed. With then he goes, oh my God, and he threw everything. That's who Tom Burns is. And like I said, this was not limited to the priesthood. He did his teaching by the way he lived, and he answered those questions that Christ posed to Peter in today's gospel. He answered those questions over and over and over again. His love for God, his love for Christ, manifested itself in his love for people. And there was never anyone who loved people more that I've ever met. We would go to a restaurant, and the moment we would be at the maitre d' standee, we would be looking around the whole room to see who we could go eat with. And I'm like the introvert of introverts. I just want to have a quiet dinner, but that wasn't going to be. But he taught me that that's where you find God. You find God in the people. And not only that, but he lived Christ's command by tending the sheep. That's the way he took care of us. I felt loved by him. That sounds like a strange thing that any associate you would think would feel that about the pastor, but he did it in such a powerful, unique way. And I'd say that was the greatest gift that he gave me. His unconditional love for who I was and who I was not. And I saw that with all people. You know, with staff, with fellow priests, with parishioners, with his family. He loved everyone. In this day and age in which there are so many ways to separate ourselves from one another because of ideology or labels or some other way that us human beings find to artificially separate ourselves, Tom Burns was about acceptance, inclusion, and seeing worth in all people. We've heard these words and thoughts throughout our lives in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Tom gave us a living embodiment with the witness of his life. The thing that I always think is important at the Mass of Resurrection of any loved one is not only to give testimony to them, but to realize that they invite us. Each and every person who crosses our lives invites us to something greater. And so Tom Burns' love is not something to be admired and just seen as a kind of a museum piece, that's what Tom did. But the recognition is that's what we're all called to. That's what God wants from all of us. For us to feed the lambs and the sheep in our lives. Husbands and wives, children and parents, friends, anyone that we have charge of. So this gospel is not just a priestly gospel, it's a gospel for the people of God. And Tom gave us the witness. He gave us the way. There was a saying that popped up in the gospel all the time that Jesus Christ was admired because he taught with one who had authority, and not like the other religious leaders of his day and age. And that authority didn't mean that he was loud or yelling, and that authority was he witnessed to what he believed. He lived what he believed. Tom Burns lived what he believed, and each and every one of us, the sheep in his life, benefited from it. Thank you, Coach Burns.